We start in a place that feels safe, maybe a long-forgotten cabin in the woods or an old storage shed at the bottom of your garden. A small community decides it's time to reclaim this space. You see several stickmen in colorful overalls, laughing, dusting, sweeping. They don't see the tiny glowing green particles rising from the floor as they clean. A week later, one of them gets sick. What was thought to be a simple flu turns into a struggle for breath. What they encountered wasn't a curse, but a biological mechanism. This is the world of Hantavirus, a family of viruses that exist as invisible tenants, carried not by people, but by rodents. While the virus might be a mystery to many, it has a long, documented history, occasionally emerging when human paths cross with its natural reservoirs. It's a classic example of a zoonotic disease, one that jumps the species barrier, transforming from a minor rodent infection into a lethal human threat. To understand the situation, we must map the system. It starts with the rodent hosts, primarily deer mice, white-footed mice, and cotton rats in the Americas, and different species of bank voles or field mice in Europe and Asia. These rodents are viral reservoirs. They can be infected for life and yet appear perfectly healthy, showing no signs of disease. The problem is what they leave behind. The virus is excreted through their saliva, urine, and droppings. The most important transition point is the transmission pathway. When these excretions dry, the virus remains viable. When a human like our stickman cleaning the cabin disturbs the environment, sweeping, dusting, or handling nested items, the dried particles become aerosolized. Inhaling these airborne particles is the most common way to get infected. Less commonly, transmission occurs through a rodent bite or ingestion of contaminated food. While extremely rare, the Andes strain in South America is the only hantavirus known for limited, close human-to-human transmission. Once the virus enters the human system, it sets a deadly timer. The progression is steep. It often begins as a generalized illness, severe fever, profound muscle aches in the large muscle groups, headache, and fatigue. At this stage, it looks identical to the flu. But soon, the path splits into two distinct dangerous diseases depending on the type of hantavirus. In the Americas, the destination is Hantavirus Pulmonary Syndrome, or HPS. This strain targets the lungs and heart. Without warning, severe shortness of breath sets in as fluid rapidly fills the lungs. It is a cardiopulmonary collapse, and the case fatality rate can be as high as 50%. On a macro level, the global system shows a geographic division of labor. The hantaviruses of the Old World, found across Europe and Asia, cause hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome, or HFRS. While also severe, HFRS primarily damages the kidneys and blood vessels, with lower, though still significant, fatality rates of 1 to 15%. Today, epidemiological mapping shows expanding ranges for these viruses. Global outbreaks linked to changing weather patterns and rodent populations are rising in regions like Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, and recently, unusual situations like an Andes virus outbreak on a cruise ship. The risk to the average traveler remains low, but the situation requires vigilant public health monitoring. The final shift must be an identity shift, moving from passive fear to active awareness. Hantavirus is a preventable system. There is no specific cure, so treatment is entirely supportive, close clinical monitoring, and often a ventilator to support breathing. Therefore, true financial mastery isn't the skill, but epidemiological mastery is. The most powerful action is interruption, reducing rodent contact, sealing entry points to your home, and using specific safety protocols when cleaning potential nesting sites. Ventilate the area first and wet the surfaces with a disinfectant instead of sweeping. We protect ourselves not by hiding, but by understanding the system we inhabit and acting next.